Mr. Heiss is now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just say the reason that the ranking member has sent 34 letters is because all 34 have been ignored. There's not been a single answer, and you would think at some point there would at least be the integrity to answer some of those letters. And quite frankly, if there is nothing to fear with Hunter Biden, then there is no reason Democrats should refuse an investigation. If there's no problem, then that's fine. There's no problem. But we believe there is a problem. We believe it's the responsibility of this committee to do its job and to investigate. I support totally House Resolution 1243. Whether Democrats care to admit it or not, there are serious concerns about the business dealings of the Biden family. There are serious concerns. These get to whether our commander-in-chief, the President of the United States, has sought to enrich himself and his family at the expense of our national security. Again, if there's nothing there, then that's fine. But let's investigate it. We have serious concerns that indeed there is something there. The Biden administration has sought to pretend that these issues do not exist. They will not answer questions from the press about the Biden family's business affairs with foreign countries. They ignore to request oversight committee Republicans for documents and information. They claim that their policies do not allow for the production of such documents. All of this is nothing but hiding, trying to avoid what is potentially extremely damaging, not only to the Biden administration, but to our nation. This administration is content to hide behind the safety blanket provided by the mainstream media that any evidence of these matters is misinformation. President Biden has insisted that he was not even aware of Hunter's business dealings. Business dealings, by the way, that involve companies tied to the Communist Party of China, America's chief rival on the national stage. But there is indeed, in fact, mounting evidence that President Biden was not only aware of what was going on, but was involved in what was going on. Why would President Biden lie about this? In the absence of truth, we're left with no other option but to draw our own conclusions. If this were President Trump, which the Democratic Party continues to be obsessed with, they would be having a feeding frenzy over this. But with President Biden, absolute crickets. It is not misinformation that there are serious concerns and mounting evidence of wrongdoing, and this needs to be investigated. What possible reason is there not to investigate this matter? What possible reason is there not to want to get to the truth? Let's learn the facts. Madam Chair, I urge you, let's learn the facts. Let's investigate this, which is, by the way, supposed to be the responsibility of this committee. Let the Biden family explain their actions. If there is nothing to hide, then there's no problem. But we need to know the truth. We need the truth. And the documents we are requesting through this resolution will help us find the truth. There is no reason to oppose this resolution. And with that, I'll yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from the District of Columbia, Representative Norton, is now recognized.
Madam Chair, the Republican resolution is about achieving a specific goal: hurting President Joe Biden and helping former President Trump if he decides to run for office again. Don't take my word for it. On August 4th, committee member Jim Jordan spoke at CPAC and said probes into Hunter Biden would, and here I'm quoting, frame up the 2024 race when I hope and I think President Trump is going to run again, and we need to make sure that he wins, end quote. Ranking Member Comer appeared on Fox News on August 28th and joined and in a discussion about Hunter Biden said, and here I'm quoting again, Joe Biden's going to have a lot of problems, and you're going to see a Republican Congress that's going to be eager to try to impeach Joe Biden, end quote. This isn't oversight. This is a smear campaign. Even Donald Trump knows that this Hunter Biden obsession is all about helping him. Back in March, after Russia had invaded Ukraine, he asked Russian President Vladimir Putin to release dirt on Hunter Biden, saying, and I'm quoting, "I would think Putin would know the answer to that. I think he should release it," end quote. This investigation is about promoting former President Trump and hurting President Biden. It's pure politics. I urge my colleagues to oppose the resolution.
Would my friend yield for a question?
I'd be happy to yield.
Is it my recollection that this obsession goes back with President Trump personally, in which he had a notorious phone call, which he characterized as a perfect phone call, with now President Zelensky of Ukraine, in which he told him, essentially, I'm going to hold up military equipment to help you defend your country until and unless I get your cooperation on finding dirt about Hunter Biden? Do I recall that correctly?
I think your memory is correct.
I thank the gentlelady.
Would Mr. Conley yield to a question?
She controls time.
Would the lady yield to Mr. Conley to answer a question?
I yield to Mr. Comer.
So, in your comparison with President Trump's phone call to Lewinsky, what's the difference in Joe Biden changing the rules on suspicious activity reports when under President Trump, President Obama, and President George W. Bush, any of us could request those suspicious activity reports? Joe Biden changed rules, and later we find out, oh, his son had 150 suspicious activity reports. This is the bank, different banks, notifying the Treasury Department that we're pretty confident our client has committed a crime.
I would urge my friend to reclaim her time.
Reclaiming my time,
Would you yield?
and I yield to my
I thank my
Mr.
friend.
Connolly.
I would just say, it's interesting that we're listening to things cloaked in self-righteousness. And you mentioned, Mr. Comer, actually a national security concern here. That's interesting because I don't remember any Republican expressing any concern when the President, Trump, gave a national security clearance to his son-in-law that he otherwise did not qualify for, in fact, was denied. Where was the concern about national security then? And, oh, by the way, that raised lots of issues about how security clearances were being handled in the White House. We're now fighting the first major ground war in Europe since World War II. And that conversation Mr. Trump had with President Zelensky is seen in an even starker coloration and a more menacing and dangerous one. And if we're going to start with investigations, let's start with that. I yield back to my friend. Thank you.
The gentlelady yields back her time. We now recognize the gentleman, Mr. Grossman.
Thank you. I'm going to speak in support of HRES 1243, which I think is very timely. Earlier today, we attended another confidential briefing on the Ukraine, or many of us did, and I assume that we were given access to these important people because we're soon going to be taking another vote, maybe a part of this year or whatever, with regard to Ukraine and what we should do. However, hanging around in the background of that vote, or that whole issue, or the requests of the Biden administration, is the gentleman who lives in a $20,000 a month mansion in Malibu, California. He also has a brother who's gotten quite wealthy in deals from China. The reason it's in the background is when we are asked to do things with regard to Ukraine or with regard to China and or with regard to Russia, and we remember that Joe Biden met with a couple Russian oligarchs and then met with his father right after that on the Naval Observatory. And lately, we've had a couple Russian billionaires who have not had sanctions like other people have. So you begin to wonder the degree to which American foreign policy right now is being determined a little bit about Hunter Biden. And I think there have to be people, both in Ukraine, both in Russia, both in China, who maybe know very bad things about Hunter Biden. And if these things came out, it may be very politically damaging for his father, President Biden, which is why this is so important. It's not an unrelated thing out there. It sure appears like people in other countries know things that could be disastrous for our president. And for that reason, I'm so glad that we have this resolution before us today, because I hope in a bipartisan, still not too late to do a bipartisan action here, we delve into as soon as possible any activities that Hunter Biden had and any that he had abroad, and whether it's possible that is affecting this administration's policy towards China, towards Ukraine, and towards Russia. So in any event, I strongly support the committee giving this resolution a positive response, and I especially beg my good Democrat friends